This is a unique video in the sense that I've kind of debated whether to even post it after I made it. I knew this would not be one of my most popular videos. Most of my videos, you can't tell if you're looking from the outside in, but for those of us that are content creators, we can see what the percentage of likes to dislikes is. Most all of my videos are 99% or higher likes to dislikes. This one probably won't make that because I'm going to tell why it is that I don't eat the carnivore diet. And I wanted to almost halfway apologize for the video before I present it. Not suggesting that I don't believe what I'm saying, but not wanting to offend my friends who do eat carnivore. And I know there are people that watch our channels and they eat carnivore and it works for them. There was a time not all that long ago when the idea of eating a meat and eggs only kind of a diet would have been considered almost self-abuse. Would have just been thought terrible by everybody. And that's not the case anymore by many. It is still the case for some. So I don't have a problem with people that need to do the carnivore diet. And I am much more accepting of it than I once was. What I do not especially like is people insisting that's the natural diet and that everybody ought to be eating that way. So with that being said, let's get into the video, the one that I wasn't so sure I wanted to post, but here we go. Recently, I did a sort of a book review. I discussed 4 different books, 3 by doctors, Jason Fung and Dr. Neil Bernard and Joel Furman, and then 1 by myself. And of course, I'm not a doctor, but all approaches to beating diabetes. And I made the point that you can find very positive reviews under all these books. Every last one of them has far more positive reviews than negative ones. Well, that video was pretty popular, had a lot of likes for it, but there was one guy that didn't seem to like it too much. So I wanted to read his comment and respond. Actually, there was more to that video than I showed you the last week, and I do plan to share some more from that, but I felt like I wanted to respond to this guy's comment. I've heard a number of other comments kind of similar to his, but here's what he says. Shut up and just make it simple. Stop consuming all carbs, sugars, plants, and processed foods. No more diabetes. So anytime a comment starts out with the words shut up, I get a little irritated. And I'm like, didn't your mama teach you any manners at all? So he's angry. Strangely enough. Now, from what he says, it's obvious he is heavily invested in the carnivore diet. Stop eating all plants, carbs, sugars, processed foods. But starting out with the word shut up, and then he puts 3 exclamation points behind each of his 3 sentences in this comment. Make it simple. Exclamation point, again, again. And then he does it twice more. So whenever you're using 3 exclamation points, you're probably a little upset. Kind of strange because in my early days of doing this Beat Diabetes YouTube channel and making videos for it, mostly what I ran into in terms of angry people, and that was one of the things that astonished me right off the bat, was some people just get angry. But the most angry people were all vegans. It was just angry vegans, or another way to put it is militant vegans. And now, strangely enough, occasionally I run into angry carnivores or militant carnivores. Why would they be angry with me? Well, because I guess I'm not totally 100% carnivore. And so I was talking about how that Dr. Neil Bernard's book has helped some people, and Dr. Furman's has, and Dr. Fung's book has, my book has. And we represent 2 different approaches. One, low carb. Don't worry about eating meat. Don't worry about saturated fat. Just eat low carb. And then the other approach is just eat whole foods, plant-based, and don't eat any meat is really what they emphasize. And so this guy took exception that I would even give the slightest nod to the other side and say, hey, they do help some people. And I made the point in that video that the low-carb approach is, in my opinion, quite superior. But the fact that I would even hint that the other side could actually help some people apparently bothered him. So he starts out, shut up, make it simple, just stop eating all carbs and all plant foods. So I wanted to kind of respond to that. Now, I've heard from others that say essentially the same thing, but they're just nicer. And for that, I appreciate it. I can accept the fact that people are not always going to agree with me, but we can be civil to one another. So anyway, my first thought is he's sort of right and sort of wrong. When he says make it simple, he's right. There's nothing more simple than a carnivore diet. Eat steaks and chicken and hamburger patties and some eggs and just forget about all the other foods altogether. Very, very simple. When it comes time to dinner, you don't have to worry and sweat. What am I going to make? What recipes am I going to use? You just put on another steak, baby, or put on another hamburger patty and a couple of eggs, and boom, you're done. Couldn't be much more simple. So he's right about that. I'll talk about the simplicity side in a little bit. But I don't agree that carnivore is something we should all do. I don't do it, obviously. And if you know this channel much, you've watched many of my videos, you know that. But let me give you a couple of illustrations I wanted to use to kind of make my point why I don't just push carnivore and just make it simple, as he says, and just tell everybody to eat steaks and eggs for every meal. So here's an illustration I wanted to use. Let's pretend in your house you've got kitchen mice. Now, they don't go anywhere else. They don't hang out in the living room. They're not in the bedrooms. They don't go in the bathrooms. They're just kitchen mice. They hang out in the kitchen because I guess that's where the crumbs are, at least for this illustration. And let's say you've got three mice in your kitchen, and you just hate those mice. You do not like them, the way they wiggle as they walk, and they come out at the weirdest times, and you just hate those mice. You want to get rid of the mice. So what do? Well, you go find a place that sells dynamite, your local dynamite store, and you light a couple sticks of dynamite, throw them in your kitchen, and you run like crazy to get away from there. And boom! Your whole kitchen blows up. And the walls are blown out. There's a big hole in the ceiling. And all the things in your kitchen are ruined. The table is ruined. The chairs are ruined. The plumbing is spoiled. But guess what? You've killed the mice. And your mice problem is over. Now, someone says, well, yeah, but you were kind of radical in the way you kill those mice. And you say, yeah, I know, but I can get it all fixed up. And so you get a housing guy, a guy that remodels houses and repairs houses, and you get him to fix up your kitchen. The cost is $21,000. So $21,000, and you've cured your mice problem. But you know what? You could have gone to Home Depot or somewhere and bought a couple of mouse traps for $2.95 and brought those home and taken care of your mouse problem for that price. So if you're looking at the two approaches, one that's going to totally blow up your kitchen and going to cost you a lot of money. Now, granted, by the time you get the whole kitchen remodeled, it's going to be real nice. But $21,000 as opposed to a couple of mouse traps that you could do the same thing for $2.95? My friend, you're paying too much. Now, if you got much going on upstairs, you know where I'm coming from on this. Why would you pay more than you need to beat diabetes? Yeah, I mean, it's true. You go carnivore, you're going to give your body essentially almost no carbs to deal with. Your blood sugar is almost guaranteed to come down significantly. That should fix your problem. As he says, it's simple. Well, it is, but maybe a little bit too simple. Anybody that's going to beat diabetes is going to have to make some sacrifices in terms of what they allow themselves to eat. But why make more sacrifices than you need to? I personally am of the opinion that if I can make less sacrifices than carnivore, if I can still be allowed vegetables and still eat salads and still have an occasional keto dessert, and I can get my blood sugar down just fine, Why in the world would I want to go carnivore and deprive myself of more? I'm sacrificing enough as it is. I don't eat French fries. I don't eat baked potatoes. I don't eat rice. There's a lot of things I don't eat. So I'm making some sacrifices, but why would I want to sacrifice more? Now, let me use another illustration from the world of Christianity. You may not be a Christian, but I think you'll quickly catch on to what I'm saying here. Back in previous generations, there were some Christian ministers that really hammered the women. I mean, they went after the ladies. And in their minds, ladies should never wear trousers or jeans, any kind of pants at all. Ladies should never cut their hair. Ladies should never wear lipstick, never put on any kind of eye makeup, never wear earrings. And they should wear very long dresses. I mean, they really went after the ladies. Didn't go after the men nearly so much, but they did after the ladies. And so there were a lot of good, decent Christian ladies that said, well, my pastor says I shouldn't wear lipstick, so no lipstick for me. My pastor says no earrings, no earrings. They won't cut their hair. They'd pile it up higher and higher. And they'd wear drab clothes because pastor kind of frowned on them dressing up too fancy. Now, imagine one of those ladies gets to the judgment seat of Christ, where they're standing before the Lord on Judgment Day, and he's reviewing their life. And one of the ladies is saying to the Lord, I'm sure you must be very proud of me. I never wore lipstick at all. I never wore any earrings. I looked very plain, and I never cut my hair. You must be very proud of me, Lord. Of course, granted, this is imaginary, but I can imagine the Lord saying to her, my daughter, you didn't have to do all that. You would have been just as acceptable to me wearing jeans around the house as wearing a long dress or skirt. And she finds out too late she made more sacrifices than she needed to. Well, to me, for many type 2 diabetics, you don't have to be carnivore to beat diabetes. I'm not. I keep my A1C around 5.0 or 4.9, and I eat salads. In fact, the two most common lunches that I have are either a salad or Benedicta's okra and spinach soup with some chicken in it. Those are my two most common. So I'm getting carbs and vegetables nearly every day. And sometimes my A1C is around 4.9. I'm doing pretty well, and yet I'm not having to sacrifice as much as some are. Now, my motto, my basic statement about beating diabetes is this: do whatever you have to do. And there are some that may have to do carnivore, and if you do, that's fine. But don't scream at the rest and say, as this guy did, shut up. Make it simple. Stop eating all plants. Let me give you one more thought, and that is, when you push people too hard with the sacrifices they may have to make, a lot of them are just not willing to make those sacrifices. Let me give you another example from Christianity. My mother gave her life to Christ when she was, I think, around 11 or 12 years of age. And she just loved Jesus. She loved the Lord. She loved church. And her dad was a typical non-Christian, non-church-going dad, kind of like the Waltons. If you've ever seen the Waltons TV show, the mom's very religious. The dad, he doesn't care a thing about religion. That's how my grandparents were on my mom's side. My mom wanted to convert her father, my grandpa, when she was like 12 years of age. And she went to him one time. She told me this several times before she passed away. She went to her father, my grandpa, and said, Daddy, wouldn't you love to be a Christian so you can go to heaven? Why don't you accept Jesus and start going to church with us? He wouldn't go to church with them. And he told her, oh, I could never give up my tobacco. I couldn't be a Christian. Well, to me, that's a shame. He had apparently heard from enough ministers or Christians that he knew of that if you're going to be a Christian, the first thing you do is throw away your cigarettes and your chewing tobacco. And he's like, oh, I can't be a Christian. I couldn't give up my tobacco. Now, I don't know if that was the only thing holding him back, but the point is, he had a false notion of what it takes to become a Christian. Jesus didn't say, throw away your tobacco and follow me. He said, deny yourself and follow me. But I don't think smoking is going to keep you out of heaven. In fact, it'll probably get you to heaven quicker than normal. Now, I think that's true with what it takes to beat diabetes. I think some people are of the impression if you don't throw away every carb, you go to 0 carbs, no carbs at all, that's how you beat diabetes. 0 carbs. Not true. There are thousands upon tens of thousands upon probably millions of former diabetics that had crossed over that boundary line into diabetes and backed right out of it. And now they're at 5.5, 5.6, 5.2, 4.9. And they're still eating salads. They're still eating green peppers. They're still having keto bread made out of almond flour and maybe some coconut flour. They're still having some plant-based foods, you might say. And they're doing very well. But if I go to every diabetic and say, all right, you're going to be a diabetic, you want to beat diabetes, fine. Here's what you do. You'll never touch a salad the rest of the days of your life. You'll never eat one sweet thing. You'll never use stevia. You'll never use Splenda. No monk fruit. Nothing sweet will ever touch those holy lips the rest of your life. That's how you're going to beat diabetes. No plant-based foods, no salads, no keto foods, no sweet things, even if they're made from stevia or monk fruit or erythritol. No, none of that. It's going to be steak and eggs the rest of your life, baby. That's the only way you can beat diabetes. There's going to be a lot of diabetics that'll say, if that's what it takes, thanks, but no thanks. I can't do it. The good news is you can enjoy your food as much as ever. You just have to make some substitutes, just like the Christian ladies don't have to throw their jeans away and be done with their eye makeup. And you don't have to get rid of every trace of plants to beat diabetes. So this guy that says, just shut up and make it simple. Let me tell you something. Sometimes you can make things too simple and you don't enjoy it. Let's think about one more. This is the day for illustrations. One more illustration. Let's say I go to a young man. He's 22 years old, single, wants to get married. And I give him some grandfatherly advice. I say, make it simple, my friend. You get married, it's going to cost you more money, and you and your wife are going to have arguments from time to time. And there's going to be times where she wants this and you want that, and you're going to have to compromise. You're not going to be free to make all your decisions on your own. You're going to have to deal with the wife. It is going to be so much more complicated. Just make it simple and don't ever get married. Then you can live where you want, do what you want, work where you want, make all your decisions on your own. Simple, easy peasy. Well, that's true. But my friend, I wouldn't trade being married for anything. I enjoy being married. Yeah, Benedict and I get into some arguments once in a while. I know you can't tell it from our videos, but there are times we have some disagreements. And there are times she wants to go this way and I want to go that way. I wouldn't trade it for the world. I love being married. Now, if you're called to be single, fine, I'm not trying to put you down. But what I'm saying is, yeah, you can simplify yourself by living out on an island somewhere or just saying, I'll be single all my life. But for most of us, that's too simple. Should not be that simple. You'll enjoy your life a little more with a little complexity and with the give and take of being married and having children. Boy, that's another story all of itself. And if you want a simple life, don't get married, don't have children. But again, in most cases, that's going to be too simple. And so, yeah, it can be a temptation to say, well, I'm just going to give up all plant foods and I'm going to be a carnivore. And it'll be so simple. Every night, a hamburger patty and an egg, hamburger patty and an egg. For most of us, that's too simple. Now, I will say this, there are some that's probably the only way you can beat diabetes. And if that's the only way you can, by all means do it. I'm not against carnivore. I'm against needless carnivore. Carnivore where you don't really have to. And I am convinced that human beings were made to process carbohydrates. We just can't do it at the level that we currently try to do it. We're eating way too many. We're drowning in an ocean of carbs, but that doesn't mean you don't you're not allowed to ever eat a single carb. You were given a pancreas, and you were given the ability to process carbs by your Creator, and that must mean he thinks it's okay for us to do that, to eat carbs in proper amounts. The problem is we are just overdoing it by a tremendous amount, and as a result, we're poisoning ourselves, we're becoming diabetic, obese, getting heart attacks and strokes, and we're just messing ourselves up. So by all means, cut those carbs. But for most of us, probably you don't need to bring them down to zero.